One big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Reason Reborn. Here with my co-host, CardiacSoul. How are you doing, sir?
Loving the fact that we're heading into the weekend.
Yeah, that's always a nice thing for everybody after a long week of work. Just chill out, relax, have fun, stream. You haven't streamed in a few days, have you?
It's been about a week, yeah.
Yeah. Don't you have to finish Life is Strange too?
I already finished it.
Oh, you finished it? How did I miss that? So you're done with
I
the toxic
finished
children.
it, and
Cool.
then we did Journey and a Memoir Blue.
Oh, you finished it before Journey. How did I not
Yeah.
see the ending?
And then that stream where I did Journey was the last time I streamed, so it's been about a week. Yeah.
Oh, damn. By the way, for you guys, if you don't know what you're talking about, this man streams on Twitch. So same name. Go give him a follow if you like watching Twitch. Be toxic in this chat.
Everybody else is.
Yeah. So why not you, ladies and gentlemen? All right. Not really much going on in the political landscape, just more shootings. Which is crazy as hell. Had a couple of more. The most recent one that's rated as a mass shooting. This is sad. And this is where we're at now, where there's shootings and then there's mass shootings. And you have to distinguish between the two. In Oklahoma, I believe it was a doctor, a couple of people who just came into the building, and the gunman himself were killed in the incident. If you want to talk about most recent shootings, yesterday, a guy in Iowa walked into a church, shot his, I believe it was his girlfriend, his girlfriend, another woman, and himself while in the middle of church. So he missed by one of being a mass shooting. So congrats. It's just all like tiring, and it's all silly. Like, come on, we just need to do something, y'all. Do something about these gun laws.
True enough. Perhaps to my shame, I guess I'll admit that I was aware of the stories. I think at one point the other day we had 3 apparently unfolding at the same time across the country. 3 cases of I don't know if they counted as mass shootings.
They
but certainly
did,
gun violence.
because that was on the 30th of May. You had 4 people in Philadelphia. You had 7 people in a town called Benton Harbor, Michigan, and then you had 10 in Charleston, South Carolina. That was all on the same day, mind you. Following the 29th, which there was 3 more, where there was a shooting in Texas, in Houston, a shooting somewhere in California, and another shooting somewhere in Oklahoma that preceded this last one. So, actually, I believe the one that was on the 29th was the one with the doctor. So I'm not sure what the one after that was. It's all confusing because they keep happening. It's like,
I guess all that just lends to the point I was about to make for why I haven't been following them as closely. There's a lot of them, and not just for the mental health aspect of not having to expose yourself to horrific things every day, but there are a lot, and the details don't really matter as much to me now. Like, I mentioned this with the Uvalde thing. Like, yeah, I mean, yes, the police misconduct that happened there is ugly, but like, it's also to me not quite the point when you have gun violence happening across the country every fucking day, to the extent that we have it in this country. You know what I mean? That's why I'm not as focused on any particular individual story or details. Like, well, we have a general problem with gun violence in this country to deal with. And until you deal with that, well, yeah, obviously you're going to see them happening like every fucking day. So it's not really worth knowing the precise details of each one. I feel weird saying that, but that is kind of the stance I have on the issue.
Yeah, no, it's becoming normal in the way that violence in the like late 80s and 90s became normal, when every day on the news they led with a shooting in some neighborhood. Like, you know, during the height of the drug war, there were always a lot of shootings between rivals, individuals, and things like that. So it became commonplace. That's one of the reasons why people kind of stopped watching the news before now, to be quite honest, was because people just got tired of seeing those shootings, and they didn't pay attention to other things that was going on in the world because of it. And I think that's kind of where we're back at now. Now that like violence has escalated to mass shootings, there's a little bit more attention, but the attention is starting to wane like it did before, because the shit just won't stop and people are tired of it. They don't want to be bothered with it. You know?
And I think the frequency and the variety shows an important point. You know, I believe it was Ted Cruz who talked about hardening and fortifying school security, and with his stupid ass ideas. Well, and I'm thinking about this because I was watching some video earlier and I saw some dude saying, like, you know, in our society, we protect precious things with guns. You know, we protect, banks have armed guards, rich people have armed guard security, whatever. Like, he's like, all the things we actually care about in our society, we have people with guns who protect them. So why not the kids? And I just thought, first of all, let's put aside how kind of ugly and creepy that dystopian little society is, where all the schools apparently have these armed guards just patrolling the place. That's a bit myopic. That's some tunnel vision there, right? Because we have shootings apparently in hospitals now, in churches, in grocery stores, in schools. Like, so this notion that you need to just put a bunch of armed people in the schools, okay, where else are we going to put armed policemen, I should say, in stores, and to help you get to church safely, and to help you in and out of the hospital safely? Like, that is just asinine. I don't even know how to respond to this idea. Even if we had the, which I don't believe, but even if we had the manpower to be doing shit like that, that really worthwhile.
Yeah, like it was one thing when like you bring up the banks thing as an excuse. It probably wasn't a wise, like maybe it was during the Wild Wild West more so, which kind of spawned that, like the protecting of large amount of money, because that's, banks used to carry a large amount of money, you know, back in the day, or at least a larger amount of money. So they felt warranted for that. But having recently worked in a bank, I can tell you now, most banks generally do not have armed guards in there, because they don't carry a lot of cash in banks anymore. As a teller, we are taught if somebody comes in, just comply. Don't fuss, like, you know, don't even reach for the buzzer, you know, because they'll be looking for that. Just take mental notes, comply with them, give them, you know, the money. And then afterwards, we lock up, we write out our things so we can remember, you know, the notes, hit the alarm, you know, so the police will come. But no, it's been probably decades since like the bank system worked like that. Maybe some Federal Reserves will do that. But if you've been into a bank within the last 5 years, you probably don't remember an armed guard.
You're right, that's muted. But honestly, because so many things are digital, I have not been in a bank in a long time.
Nobody goes to a bank, so that's a.
And the last
example
time
from the
was when I needed a
past.
card replaced or something. Like,
Yeah. No, that's
even
an
that you can do
example that's
online now.
more to the past of his youth, which kind of lends to the point and argument that we've made about how all these old motherfuckers don't need to be senators. Because, yeah, things aren't like that. And again, like you said, things are more digital. Pandemics even affected banks where a lot of banks and branches are closing. They don't even deal with you unless they need, like, I think my credit union has an armed guard. And I gotta tell you, it's not like those some superimposing security. Like it's not a fortress, that's for sure. So
I mean, to be clear, the comment about the bank thing was some random asshole on YouTube, not Cruz. Cruz says a bunch of other dumb things on all his own. But yeah, I mean, just the
I'm
major
gonna
point.
say
Like,
it's Ted Cruz.
even if it was true that we had a bunch of, people with rifles or something guarding the money at banks, that is not a feasible, scalable solution to just put a bunch of people with guns.
It's not even a
everywhere
one-to-one
people are.
comparison. Like,
Sorry?
it's really, I would just say it's not a one-to-one comparison because, again, someone trying to rob a facility, you're expecting that. How many of us really expect somebody, or had until recently, expected someone to just want to go into a school and mow out a bunch of fucking kids? Like, when did that become a, like, threat that needed armed violence? Like,
Yeah.
you should be asking yourself, why is it to this point where you want to treat it like a bank? Like, not, we should just treat it like a bank. Because then what? You're going to have shootouts. More innocent people going to die. What's the solution?
Conservatives are always running their mouths about how things were when they were kids. Like, apparently the fact that they didn't have to have armed guards and shit at schools when they were kids doesn't count as, something to reminisce about. They're always weirdly reminiscent about shit you shouldn't miss. And it's like things that you should miss, like being able to go to school safely. We don't remember that. Come on.
Yeah, like, when's the last time you've legit heard about a bank robbery? And they probably happen more frequently than we think. But again, having worked in a bank, I can tell you, a lot of it is just like somebody will come in, they won't even pull a gun. Because I've heard stories from people who've experienced, they'll just give you a note, you just comply with it and just keep it going. Don't say anything because you don't know if they're for real or not. It's more like a transaction these days than anything that you've seen in a movie, or back in the day with, like, Pretty Boy Floyd and all of them. It's not like that anymore.
I was listening to this podcast earlier, and the guy, I'd have to look up his name. I can't remember, but he was talking about, obviously, the thing we're all talking about right now, gun violence in America. And he kind of framed it in a way that I hadn't quite thought of, which is, he had said, these Republicans, these conservatives are like obsessed with getting more guns out into the public. They're, having people be able to get as many guns as they want whenever they want. Fuck any sort of background check or restriction or anything. And then when we have problems with gun violence, they also want to, like, arm the teachers and put more policemen. They want to put more guns in the hands of, if not just policemen, at least some kinds of workers like teachers and whatnot. So it's like, you got to create this gun problem by allowing them to proliferate in the public. And then to solve that, you just pour more guns onto the good guys' side. It's like, that's a weird sort of positive feedback loop where you're kind of just like feeding guns to both sides of this supposed problem. I thought that was very interesting framing. It's like, yeah, they sort of create the issue by not having restrictions and then try to solve it by just adding more guns, which is even funnier when you think about the way some conservative people will argue they need guns to protect themselves from the state, the police. It's like, well, okay,
No,
but then you
let's
also want
be
to arm them
real. They're
even
not
more.
even like saying that shit. They're saying they need their guns to kill fucking raccoons that go after their chickens. This is true story, people. They need to kill feral pigs on their farmland. This is why they need their guns, you know.
They'll come up with any general reason. Be honest, you know.
Yeah.
Kill pigs, kill bad guys. I don't know. It's interesting. The argument seems to have evolved really from, you know, having a gun in the home to protect your family at home and whatnot. It's like, well, is that really what you're doing when you basically want to be able to drive around a tank, no consequences, no questions asked? Like you're not really. It's a bit specious to be claiming you just want to protect your family. Some of you, I mean, yes, I know a few people who own guns who I believe are responsible gun owners, but like, ugh. I mean, like you said, the topic is an everyday thing, and I feel like a bit of a broken record even discussing some of it. But
yeah, I know. Just like the topic about the stupidity of like these Republican candidates that are running for office. Seems to be an everyday thing. So, did you see the story I sent you about Herschel Walker?
I did.
So, for those who don't know, Herschel Walker, former University of Georgia running back and Heisman Trophy winner, helped them win their first national championship. Blah blah blah. Was a childhood hero because of the football stuff. And notoriously famous professionally for being a key piece in one of the worst trades ever made in football history, in sports history, not just football, sports history. That was an awful goddamn trade. They traded that guy for 7 people, and he never did anything significant in his pro career. Meanwhile, most of the 7 people, I think all of the 7 people just about that they traded him for, either had great careers or Hall of Fame careers. So, and won several titles. Biggest fleecing I've ever seen. Anyway, that man needs help, and he's crazy. He's been saying off the cuff wild things, showing that he indeed has mental health issues. He's had a history of violence, having, been charged with attempting to kill at least one, if not 2, of his former girlfriends or wives. He's raised a nut job of a son as well, which even adds more to it. And he's running for U.S. Senate against Raphael Warnock, which is wild. It bothers me. One of my favorite rappers endorses him, but I have to remind myself I only like him because he's good at rap. He's not good at anything outside of that arena, especially his political views. He's a gun nut, by the way. Killer Mike, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. He's.
The second you said gun nut, I was like, oh, Killer Mike. Yeah.
That's the sad thing, is that you can associate that with him.
I only hesitated because for a second I was like in my brain I was saying Ghostface. I was like, oh no, what's the name? Like, when you get a
right.
Once you get like the wrong word stuck in your head, it's kind of hard to get back to the right one. But yeah, I knew. Like, I was suspecting it, but the second you mentioned guns, it's like, yep, Killer Mike.
Yeah, he's an NRA fanatic. He's been kind of having a shit time after that interview he did with Herschel Walker, by the way, in which Herschel Walker was saying more crazy shit. The craziest thing he said lately is, well, they pulled some footage of an interview for a commercial, Senator Warnock's campaign, where he said that he has something that he can, like, I guess some type of dust or fairy dust spray, whatever, that if he puts it on you, it'll get rid of COVID, or he put it in a room, it'll basically kill COVID. And yet people have backed him to run for Senate. I forgot
I
what
saw
his
the
gun.
quote
Go ahead.
that he said there. He's essentially claimed that if you, even the way he said it, like just in terms of raw English, was a little confusing. But he seemed to be suggesting that he had some sort of substance that they somehow disseminate in a room. So when you walk in to this building, he said, it will kill all the COVID on you, and when you walk out, it'll kill it again or whatever. Like I almost wish you had the quote to pull up and put on screen, because even the way he tried to phrase it didn't make sense as like an English sentence, you know?
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
it's
God.
sad that he's being treated as a viable candidate because this man needs help. He's mentally like, it's funny because when it comes to the gun violence thing, they have this huge concern about mental health. It's like, it's not the guns, it's people with mental health. Yet you're perfectly fine with this guy who's shown no signs of having any type of like qualifications or signs that he's coherent as just a human being from a day-to-day basis. Yet you want him to be one member of Congress and to vote on legislation that affects this entire country.
I mean, let's be honest, they don't give a shit about mental health either.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing with.
but it's just like you just have to like say it because it's fascinating to me.
It's the contrarian nature of them. You know, they want their guns, so they're just going to sort of, run ass backwards into any random reason not to restrict access to them. That's why, like, we joke about like the pig thing, or the explicit need to protect yourself from the government, all this stuff. It really doesn't matter precisely what they say. The point is they want them, so they're just going to, at any given moment, think of some random shit that they can say to justify having it. It's like climate change debate, right? Like, we all know it's a problem, but they'll say like, well, the planet was just going to naturally warm anyway, and who cares? And like, it's a hoax. Like, once they decide that they want to do whatever the fuck they want to do, they will come up with the laziest reasons possible to just keep doing it. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah, they I don't know. And the other story where you have the Secretary of State candidate in Massachusetts trying to instill fear in people for voting for her opponent because they'll have teachers. What was it exactly? Like, they're teaching their kids that it's okay to suck like another
That
student's
woman,
dick.
Rayla Campbell.
Yes.
I'm not going to repeat that quote because I feel like that's something YouTube would flag.
But she said this in public.
Yeah, she did. Basically, I can't remember what she was railing about, but she's like, I don't like that they're telling,
5-year-old,
your 5-year-old that he can go and perform acts on another 5-year-old's parts. I'm uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable because even after I said it, I just feel like, reading it, it's like, like, what is wrong with y'all? Like,
I've composed myself.
You think that homosexuality is that? Like, that acknowledging that people have different sexualities is that? Like, first of all, no teacher's going out and like teaching homosexuality or sexuality to a 5-year-old anyway. You're 5-year-old in kindergarten, 9 times out of 10, you're painting shit and pasting stuff, and they're stopping you from eating the paste so you don't become an idiot like this person here. Things like that. I don't know why people don't understand that kids know these things, because kids are far more aware than people want to give credit. Kids pay attention to everything. ever been around a kid and did something that you weren't supposed to and didn't go out of your way to let this kid know that they should never tell anybody? Even if you did, doesn't matter. That kid will be able to tell somebody and recall what you did far further in the future, at the most random moment, because kids are aware of what's going on. They're not dumb.
All right, two things. Because I think the last couple of podcasts we've been, obviously for obvious reasons, focused on the gun violence issue. So we haven't really talked too much about this newfound energy Republicans have in going after, reproductive rights, going after the LGBTQ community writ large. But it has been the case historically, but like a lot, you notice it a lot recently, that they will go after people on the left and try to cast them as these sort of sexual child abusers. What's the word I'm looking for here? They're essentially trying to claim that all these people are pedophiles and want to promote sexual behavior in your kids, if not enact them on the kids themselves. It's really, really fucking ugly thing to do. It's something you see a lot of very terrible regimes throughout history try to pull off, because obviously harming children in any way, especially sexually, is seen as horrific, which it is, right? So you understand strategically why they have that tactic, but it's a really fucking ugly tactic, and it's really depressing that it's so ubiquitous with them. Like, especially because a lot of these people didn't give a shit when people like Roy Moore was an actual.
I was just about to say,
but,
and you had one that was actually a pedophile running, who wrote a book and acknowledged he's been eyeing his wife since she was like 14 or something like that. Like, come on.
What was that other, more recently? He's been in the news for so many things. Oh my God, what's his name? Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
Like, you guys don't give a shit about like literal actual examples of this problem in your own party, but you'll go out of your way to lie and make your opponents look like they're child abusers, which again, I feel like I can't even explain just how despicable that kind of shit is. To be doing that purely for political gain, like, it's gross as shit. I just wanted to point out that they have been doing this pretty consistently across the country in different local and national elections and whatnot. Like, it needs to fucking stop. Like, this should not be the standard of our politics in this country, and it kind of is. And I feel like we're not talking enough about that, and not shaming these people enough for taking that fucking route. Fucking Christ, gross.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, the most like decent one of these stories is that Dr. Oz, who said some wild shit himself, but not as wild as this, is now the GOP candidate in Pennsylvania for the U.S. Senate. So we got all these nut jobs as leading candidates and potentially joining Laura Boebert and, what's her name? I can't think of her three names, but wacko,
Marjorie
psycho,
Taylor Greene.
Insane. That's her name. Oh yeah. Yep. Okay. That too. And you got Louis Gohmert, who commented how he hates the fact that they can't lie in the Senate. I mean, in Congress, which, what? Like, it's just a bunch of the same thing. You got your boy in Florida, DeSantis, who's on the Special Olympic board and pressured the Special Olympics basically to get rid of their COVID vaccine rule.
You saw that story? He was gonna find them what, like millions of dollars.
He was gonna fucking try to bankrupt a fucking charitable company that tries to promote and support people with disabilities. because they wanted them to be vaccinated.
Yeah,
Like,
27 million. I was looking for the number. I was like, what the fuck? I just talked about how you should, treat your opponents with respect. Like, can we talk about just the raw level of pure fucking evil these assholes are up to? Like,
right.
Merely because they had like some vaccine policy or whatever, some policy around COVID that most places in the country fucking had.
Most private businesses are allowed to have by law.
Not to mention, I mean, yeah, you could get all over that issue, him being all authoritarian about what companies can do in his state and then pretending to be about freedom. Not to mention that, given that these people are in the Special Olympics, there's probably a decent chance that they're more vulnerable to these kinds of diseases than the rest of the population. So that alone is also an issue. He was willing to find them almost 30 million just to make a point. Like, I lived in that state and people voted for this guy. And I know other people are going to be like, well, what's the alternative? That fucking dude who turned out to become a drug addict?
There's a lot of cocaine and drugs in Florida. Can't blame them.
I don't want to make fun of the guy's addiction, but I will say if I lost to this fucking monster, I might start doing drugs too.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like, honestly, yeah, maybe even with that problem, he might have still been a better choice at this point. Like, look at this fucking maniac. You want to talk about the Disney thing? You want to talk about this? Like, how fucking ugly can you get to even pull a move like this?
Yeah, the man yelled at a bunch of kids because they wore masks on stage with them. And that triggered him to the point for him to scream at them. Like,
oh yeah, I remember that. And people talking about a couple of the kids actually taking them off. I'm like, bruh, like, it's the same thing with the police thing. Like, yeah, maybe the kid took it off or whatever. Like, he's a kid. Well, I shouldn't say he was a kid like he was 5, but that's not the point. The point is you have a state leader yelling at the kids to do a thing. Not that the kid actually did it. Right? Like, don't lose focus on that.
Yeah. They like being like evil, but I guess evil pays because look at all the things in their evilness they've been able to get. We haven't forgot the abortion things coming. Like, they've been keeping it quiet, but it's summer now. It's about time for that to pop up and rear its ugly head again.
Like I just said, a few minutes ago, like I said, we should be charitable to our opponents. We shouldn't be taking this ugly behavior. So I've always hated when people call their opponents evil, but I don't know what else you call this while still being fair about what's, being honest rather about what's actually happening. Like, it's so extreme at this point. I forgot to say when we were talking about the woman claiming that her opponent wanted to tell little kids to bang each other. This weird notion, because I was thinking about it again when they were talking about their attack on Disney. I shouldn't say weird, it's common, but it's stupid. This notion that if kids hear anything about sex or sexuality, they're gonna just end up fucked up. I don't know why people think this about children. A lot of you motherfuckers knew a lot more about sex earlier than your parents probably wanted you to. And granted, you turned out to be assholes, but you're not mentally broken. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, it's a thought experiment. If you guys have small kids, imagine explaining sex or something to them in general. What do you think is going to happen really? What's going to happen? Are they going to turn into a bunch of serial killers, walk outside, teddy bear in one arm, knife in the other, and start knifing up their friend? I don't even understand what the fear is. Be honest, kids kind of just don't give a shit about anything. You tell them one thing and then they're just like, all right, whatever. And they don't want to play with their toys. They're barely fucking listening to you.
Again,
so
they're very aware and they know these things already. And they're more accepting. They're like, okay.
I never had to have the talk with a kid, but honestly, the most frustrating thing about them is they just don't listen. They don't really care that much unless they happen to be a little curious in the moment. But for the most part, they're just bands like this. They're not listening to you.
Right. And I hate to bring it back to this, but it's just the like weird stock contrast to me because you have an issue with your children being aware that there's certain things such as homosexuality and racism, you know, things that maybe if you would be more clear and understanding to your children, that you could avoid a lot of trauma as they grow up, so that if they are homosexual, when they get older, they'll understand, like, the nuances and things of society, maybe. With the racism thing, maybe if you teach your kids a little bit about how wrong that shit is, that maybe they won't grow up to be racist assholes. And we could save a lot of, strife over that. You have no problem. You have problems with all of this. You don't blink an eye when you hear that a little girl during that shooting in Uvalde literally told people that she rubbed her dead friend's blood all over her and laid down and played dead so she wouldn't be shot. You're fine with shit like that. But please don't say the word gay, because that will automatically turn all your kids gay. Go.
You want the kids to remain innocent, but you also want them to be ready for a fucking war at any moment.
Right.
Like, oh my God. But yeah, I meant to say that because I mentioned I had two things, and that was the second thing. It's like this stupid fucking conversation about telling kids about anything about sex, as though it's. I always just want to ask people when they have this concern, what exactly are you imagining will happen? It reminds me of like when people say Hillary would have been just as bad as Trump. I want to be like, all right, let's sit down and have like a thought experiment. What exactly would Hillary have done to justify that statement? Precise policy things, like what exactly do you think she would have done in reality? Because a lot of times people just say things like that. I'm like, I could tell you didn't really sit down and try to imagine the scenario here. I don't remember how old I was when my mom had like to talk with me, but my mom was a nurse, so she had it with me pretty fucking early, right? Like the fact that I can't even remember what age I was should tell you how young I was. And as fucked up as I am, that didn't really have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? At most, it was like mildly awkward because
the talk
I
is
mean,
weird,
I guess because
because
it was a
is
parent.
that really what you would talk to your parents about? I always found the talk thing kind of weird. I understand why it's done, but I feel like just sign the permission slip for sex ed and just let you tell me.
Honestly, like I said, I don't know what age I was, but like she definitely talked to me about it well before I had any sex ed in school. So I was like even younger than that. You know what I mean? Like even younger than the school would have told me, and it still kind of didn't fucking matter. But honestly, I also think, bit my tongue there a little bit. I also think part of the reason it was awkward is because parents make such a big fucking deal about it. Like, all right, stop what you're doing. We need to have a serious fucking talk about penises and vaginas, right? Like, they certainly don't treat it like it's a casual topic. So I think that's part of what makes it a little awkward.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying they should just like bust the room like, hey, you ever heard of butt sex? But like,
But and that's the thing. It's not
be
like
a little more chill.
when they talk about these things, they're giving you raw details. Like this lady saying what she said. Like, I can't even say what came to my mind, but it's just like, again, like you said, it's not like, they kick in the door and was like, you ever felt like you wanted to take your classmate and do this? You know what that means, right? No, they're not giving these like graphic raw displays. It reminds me of somebody on a podcast when like they got because there's a book that actually goes over this. I'm sure it's banned in Florida. That kind of like for kids introduces the idea that sometimes men like to be with men, women like to be with women, like that. And this guy on the podcast saying like he's got the book for his daughter, but her first experience was something she saw maybe on TV or something like that. And she asked a question, and he just simply said, yeah, sometimes there's two mommies and sometimes there's two daddies. And the kid went, oh, okay. So let's watch cartoons. Like, they don't fucking care. They don't take it. Like, they're not, it's not like you say something to them. They're like, oh, then I'm going to have me a mommy as my like wife. Like, it's not like it's just like this revelation for them to like, boom. Well, you say that's okay. I want to do it. Like, the things that kids are impulsive on are fucking climbing on shit, turning on the stove and seeing what that does. Like, you know, drinking stuff that they're not supposed to be drinking. Shit like that. Like, like that's where kids' impulses go. They're not concerned with sexuality until they start to become more mature and the sexuality and the hormones start to kick in. Then that stuff kicked in. At that time,
gross shit.
What was
I just
that?
randomly remembered some of the gross shit we drank in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
But if you put ketchup in the milk, fucking
yeah, because kids are dumb sometimes. Like, they're very perceptive and aware, but they can be dumb, and they just do dumb. That's where the influence is. You should be worried about the motherfucker who gets your kid to fucking drink ketchup and milk more than you should be worried about the teacher saying the word gay around them. Come on.
When you start mixing a drink and it turns out black, you know, that's the conversations you need to have with your kids. Like,
yeah, like, exactly. So, it's weird. And they do these things. They fear monger. Of course, it works because they attack stupid people. And God help us, there's a lot of stupid people in the world. You know.
Honestly, I kind of feel like parents are just stupid people in general. Like, their attitude towards their kids are like irrational.
Yeah.
What was the book? This is The Blank Slate. He was kind of going through like the way some people like sit up their kids in these little support things, thinking it will help them to like learn to sit up and learn to stand. And he's like, bruh, you don't teach your kids to stand and walk. They just fucking do that. Like, I don't know, the way people treat their children like these fragile, tiny little stupid things. I mean, they are, but like, you're overdoing it, bro. They'll be fine. If a kid knows what to call their penis, they're not going to like suddenly walk out and do something crazy. And if they are, there was probably something else wrong with them. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's just asinine. It's very asinine. I don't understand. But these
Honestly,
are the people who are going to lead the nation, possibly. What was that?
You could probably even be graphic with your descriptions, and it still wouldn't fucking matter. They would just kind of find it gross, but like, it wouldn't ruin them for life. You know?
No.
You have to do a lot to fuck somebody for life.
The funny thing is, I find that when you respond the way that they do to shit like that, it makes situations worse. Usually you go back into people's histories and, you know, reflect on how they turn out. It's the extremely like negative reactions and like the more visceral reactions that they get from people who they're surrounded by, you know, parents, uncles, aunts, whatever the person of influence they're around, that tends to shape them to go into extremes and to do like very, very fucked up things, sometimes to themselves, you know? Like, I don't prescribe to the everything that's been done to you growing up is the reason why you do all the fucked up things that you do. Because, you know, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but they do have adverse effects. There are things that can have adverse effects on people that may help, you know, them feed into their worse inhibitions. You know what I mean?
It's like,
Uh-oh.
all right, sorry. I thought I lost audio for a second. You know, all the Bluetooth technology, sometimes they connect to each other when I don't want it to.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, the I do think it is a thing where people sometimes attribute things they don't like about themselves to their parents, and you know, that could be a factor. But I do think sometimes that's overblown. Even I kind of did that a little
Yeah,
bit when I
no,
was
that's why
younger.
I'm
It's
saying
like,
I don't
well,
think it's like totally shapes you, but it can be
certainly have an
part of,
effect, yeah.
like, you know, like I said, feeding you to your worst, pushing you a little bit on the nudging you towards your worst of the best. Because I think a lot of the things that people do, I think we all have. I wish I could say this in a more adult way, because this is going to sound childish, but we all have bad stuff in us. It's just that we we ultimately make the decision on which way we're going to go. But like everything else in life, there are influences that can help you shape your decisions as well. It's not the reason, but it definitely can be a part of the whole landscape of things. But yeah, I do find that overblown too, when they're like, well, if you would have loved me more, I would have never did this. Well, maybe you would have not thought to like want to be that type of person, but something in you like also helped make you be that person. Yeah.
I mean, like I
Unless it's
remember,
extremes. There are some extreme cases where it's like, yeah, this kid's gonna be fucked up no matter what because of
sure.
how fucked up people around them are.
I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just like a personality trait. Like you know,
Yeah.
my
That's what
parents
I should
used
have
to always
said
tell you
instead
like
of
shut
this
up all the
bad thing
time.
in me. God damn it.
Yeah. My parents would tell you like shut up all the time. And when I was a teenager, it's like, you know, this is why I'm quiet, because my parents didn't want me to talk. It's like, no, that is just a personality trait I have. They did not mold me to have that personality trait. I just kind of have it, kind of attributing it to them after the fact. You know, again, I mentioned that book, The Blank Slate, but Steven Pinker does a lot of interesting work on that nature versus nurture divide in that book, I believe. So that is always a great recommendation, The Blank Slate by Steven Pinker. But yeah, like the important thing there is, you know, the Republicans are at war over every fucking social issue, you know, against the LGBTQ community, against reproductive rights, and they use this supposed caring about children as part of their, you know, as one of their weapons in their armory. But one, they don't care about kids, so stop fucking around. And two, the things they pretend to be worried about aren't problems anyway. Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad, but it is what it is. These are the people that we have to deal with, unfortunately, because people are stupid. People
Instead
are
of trying to protect your kids' precious ears from hearing about sex, maybe you should protect them from guns.
Yeah, that would be a lot better. And stop falling on the Second Amendment. I hate the fucking Second Amendment. It is the most like misinterpreted amendment in the fucking. Well, no, my bad. Ironically, the Second Amendment is the second most misinterpreted amendment in the Constitution, because the First Amendment is the most misinterpreted amendment with freedom of speech and shit like that. The Constitution itself is fucking just a shit show, because the term God-given rights is like the crux of it. Like, God didn't write the Constitution, y'all. Y'all know that, right? Written by a bunch of men who had the foresight to tell you that, yeah, we feel like these are working right now, but not going to always work. So feel free to change things and upgrade when it can. And it is just all devolved into the Constitution just being the, you know, the word of the Lord, basically, to a lot of people. And
we talked about it last podcast, about how the American law system is kind of rigid and hard to move fucking at all. Because the Constitution is, like you said, treated as the word of God. So it's difficult, both as a matter of fact, but just in spirit, to really make changes, any major changes like that. But I find it really sad because all these people who love the Constitution, how brilliant it was, to me, the best thing about the Constitution is not that it is a brilliant piece of paper, that created these wonderful rules for the society. The best thing about it is that it is by design something you can expand upon. Maybe that's the engineer in me talking, but like that is the best thing about it, is that you're supposed to be able to build upon it and change it. And yet we treat it like exactly the opposite. That's why I know what people mean when they always say, like, when they're talking about like racial issues, like, the Constitution wasn't written for people like us. I'm like, I know what you fucking mean, but it also kind of doesn't matter. The point of the Constitution is that you can expand it to include people like us.
it is built to be rewritten.
Right. So I was getting a little frustrated when I hear that phrase. I'm like, okay, fair enough as a historical fact, but that's not really, it's not really that helpful. I mean, it is true, I guess, but like, that's not really an answer to how we move forward. And the Constitution gives you the ability to move forward if you will seize it.
Yeah. And again, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like it's akin to the Bible. A lot of people are just going to interpret it however they want, because I'm looking at the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, right to bear arms, I get it. It says that you can't infringe upon your right to have guns. Cool. But y'all totally take away the whole first part about well-regulated militia and them being necessary to the security of the state. Now, this may be just my interpretation, but to me, when you say that it's well-regulated, you're telling me that you can actually create laws and govern the right to bear arms. You don't just have to just let you have whatever fucking gun that you want.
That's honestly, I don't even think that point itself is disputable. I think even the Supreme Court agrees you can do that. Maybe they did. Well, what's that justice's name?
Alito or
no, and I won't remember. But like, it is just pretty much agreed that you can regulate it. You obviously get to strip the right completely, but yeah, there's no good legal argument about not being able to regulate it. They just don't fucking want to. They don't want they just hate, for some reason, hate the idea of the government coming and taking their guns and taking their rights away. And it's like, bro, your rights have always had limitations. I hate the way people talk about rights in this country as though they're meant to be absolutes. They're definitely not. You talk about the freedom of speech, right? Which I won't bother to get into. The fact that is just meant that the government can't really silence you, not just random places of business, but they take that idea and think it just means you can say whatever you want whenever you want and nobody can tell you to shut up. Like I can't go to work right now and just start yelling and they're like, fuck you to everybody and nobody fires me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Places can have rules and regulations, and they should. That is how they function. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's just stupid. They want they don't want to just have their cake and eat it too. They want to eat the whole fucking bakery.
Yeah, again, people just do like the most fucked up things, and misinterpret things and manipulate things however they see fit so they can get over. Nobody really actually cares about what these laws mean, what they're supposed to be about. Like, nah, they're
One more thing, I forgot to say this guy. I had actually been waiting until you mentioned Dr. Mehmet Oz. It just, when I saw that article, it made me think of, I guess it was the 2016. Yeah, it must have been the 2016 Republican primaries where you saw this cast of cartoon characters, before Trump really took the stage, but I guess including him, you saw your Carsons, you saw your...
Oh my God. I gotta look it up now. You just made me remember. That was a cavalcade of comedy. That was really bad.
Was Cruz standing there? I don't remember.
Yes, he was.
Micheal something.
I'm gonna look this up. Because let's see, the 2016 GOP presidency.
Michelle Bachman.
There we go.
That's what I was looking for.
So who was it?
Michelle Bachman.
Yeah. All right. So, whoo, damn, there was a lot of people. So we'll just go back to like people before the primaries and up. So people who didn't make it to the primaries. Oh my God. And this makes sense why his cabinet was the way it was. Rick Perry ran for president. He dropped out in September of 2015. Scott Walker, not familiar with him. He was the governor of Wisconsin's recently. So he just went back to being governor of Wisconsin. Bobby Jindal, remember everybody thought that he was going to be their brown hero? Like, I remember that shit.
That one I didn't remember at all.
Huh?
That one I didn't remember at all.
Yeah, I forgot he was in that mix. He was the governor of Louisiana. I believe he was the governor during what's his name? Was he? No, he wasn't there. Katrina. He was I believe he was the mayor of New Orleans during Katrina. I'm gonna say. Yeah. Lindsey Graham. He ran for that shit. Oh man, that's wild. Like, and then of course you had George Pataki, who I totally forgot George Pataki even tried to run for president. He used to be the governor of New York. Nobody liked George Pataki. All right, so the people who were in the primaries and who, to what you were talking about on the debate, Jesus Christ, this is like list. Mike Huckabee, more known as the former governor of Arkansas, but more famously known as the father to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is trying to be the governor of Arkansas now. So yeah, you got that legacy that he left. Ugh. It's funny because they list who they endorsed after they drew out, and pretty much everybody went to Trump, which is sad. Although some people tried to get Ted Cruz in there. That's funny. All right, well, Rand Paul ran. Like, we know what the disaster that man is as a senator. He took an ass whipping like it was his neighbor in the whole proceedings. I know. I'm wrong for that. I know. Rick Santorum. Oh, man. There's a guy who thought that he was going to have like a long political career. He even went to TV afterwards and got shooed off of there eventually, trying to be like the right-wing counterpart to CNN when for a while. That's crazy. Carly Fiorina, I don't remember. She was the CEO of Hewlett Packard. Wow. Yeah, you ain't had no chance because you were a CEO of Hewlett Packard. Are they in the company anymore?
It must be. It must be.
I feel like they got
HP?
bought by somebody. I feel like either they bought Acer or Acer bought them. And I want to say Acer bought them.
I'm sure Microsoft will buy them both either way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dell or something. Who knows?
Chris Christie. Wow. That man was begging hard for a job in the government too after he endorsed Trump. And Trump dissed the shit out of him. Like, oof. Jim Gilmore, former governor of Virginia. I remember he was governor of Virginia. It's always dark days when there's a Republican governor in Virginia. Seems to coincide a lot. Jeb Bush, your former governor of Florida. The Bush that everybody thought was going to be like, the better Bush, but turns out he wasn't. Ben Carson, as you mentioned, goddamn. That man was the secretary of like housing and urban development, y'all. A neurosurgeon was put as the head of urban, and it's sad because we know why he was put there.
Yeah, the brains for it.
Huh?
Yeah, the brains for it.
If his brains were his skin color, yes. That's kind of like that still bothers me that not too many people caught that idea that they put the black guy to relate with making sure people have housing.
Shout out to him for like spending a bunch of their money on his own bullshit. By the
way,
I
he
didn't forget that
fucking
scandal.
like racked up, and so did his like manager, that lady who was one of Trump's decorators or something that he hired to be in charge of his staff. Like Marco Rubio, forgot about him existing. He he's still a senator though. Huh. I think I don't hear as much about him. I did see him when he was one of the stupid people talking after the shooting. So I guess he's still around. Ted Cruz, everybody's favorite senator to hate.
I gotta say, I feel weird that earlier I was like, was Ted Cruz in that debate? I was like, yes, because that was back when Trump called his wife ugly and his father a murderer. And
yeah, he was in the last debate. It was like Ted Cruz was pretty much
he was the number two man. He was the last man standing.
Yeah.
Trump saved his asshole for last. I'll never forget that dude called your wife ugly and your dad a murderer, right. And then you said, "So can I suck your dick now?" And like, yeah. Oh god, sorry. Go ahead.
And the last one is John Kasich, former governor of Ohio, and of course, the Donald ended up beating them all. For one, how horrible must you feel for some of these people who were like former like leaders of states to have lost to this man?
I thought Michelle Bachmann was in those debates, but maybe I just remember it wrong. But either way, I guess it doesn't matter. Like the point I was making was I was thinking back. Would it have been Bachmann? It was the year. Maybe it was the previous election.
No,
I
feel like I remember
Ryan.
The end, they have an addendum. These following people were focused on presidential speculation and early reports, but they didn't run. And she's one of the people. She actually didn't officially decide to run. So that's probably why you remember her, because she was in some of the preliminary stuff before they made their campaigns official.
All right.
Oddly enough, Herman Cain was too. Ugh.
Thank you. I was thinking, like, wasn't there another black guy?
Yes, Herman Cain was the other.
Well, I should say another black guy. I knew who it was, but I couldn't
Well,
remember.
Herman Cain, and there was
was
another one, Alan West. I don't remember him much.
I was gonna say the black guy who got the COVID. But I just swear to God, couldn't remember his name. The point I was making when I brought that up, because I said I was waiting for you to get to the Oz thing to bring this up, but like I always think back to when I was watching those debates, and I just watched all these cartoon characters on stage. Obviously, Trump being one of them, but even Cruz. I didn't even say Marco Rubio, and he comes off a little more serious when he's standing next to them, but I consider him a bit of a cartoon character. I thought Bachman was at the time, definitely Carson. You just said his name and I already forgot it again. Herman Cain.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had that image of my head of like watching them at their podiums around the debate stage and thinking like, how is it possible that the Republican Party is just increasingly comprised of these fucking cartoon characters? And so when I'm looking at, that woman that we mentioned earlier talking about sexual activity with kids, or literally Dr. Oz, shout out to Oprah for putting him up.
Yo, Oprah low-key is a monster socially, by the way. She's socially a hero, and she's also a monster. She's yin and yang. Like,
when people were talking about her possibly being president, I was like, remember, she gave you Dr. Oz.
And remember, she gave you Dr. Phil, too.
Yeah, I was about to say, y'all forget, because she was like this big hero to women, but like she really helped because she had such a huge platform, she really helped put on some really stupid pseudoscience bullshit. Sorry, that's just true.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and then now here we are, years later, and I'm looking at Dr. Oz himself running for office. I'm like, this is the problem with these motherfuckers. They pick the most cartoony, stupid, extreme motherfuckers they can find and rally around. Maybe I shouldn't say the problem, because apparently it's working for him, I guess. But like, it just felt like the party got more and more extreme and cartoony, and they are self-selecting for the most polarizing, entertaining candidates. And that's not to say like, the Democrats never had anything like that. Like, that fucking, I still remember that fucking weird witch lady that was in the Democratic primary, but still, it's not the same. So yeah, just that was a long-winded way of saying Dr. Oz reminded me of the 2016 Republican debates, and how their party has just been leaning harder. Like, you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and all these other fucking Looney Tune weirdos, like,
yeah,
your party supposedly represents half the country, and this is the best of you.
Yeah, but they work. That's the thing. They work because their base is a bunch of like, loons. So I don't know. I just don't know. Like, and I need all the people who claim to be smart and intelligent to like get up off their asses and vote. Like, I think that's part of the thing that's even more frustrating. There's people who know better who won't vote because they are very, very obstinate for the dumbest reasons. Just like I saw a report where people were upset at the rumor that Biden may only like start off with student debt relief at $10,000. And someone made a comment. It was like, this is the problem, is that people are going to not vote and say it's because of things like this, looking for a reason to be mad and say why they're not going to vote, when $10,000 is better than what you're getting now. Like, yes, I get it. The Democrats don't fucking like change the world because of the way that things are fucked up, and how the voting system works. 60 instead of just having a simple majority, all that stuff. people like Manchin and Cinema and things like that. But when things do get passed, they generally move things forward. And those things that are moved forward are by the Democratic Party. So, yeah, Biden hasn't solved every problem in the world for you. It hasn't given you everything that you think that you're old or you think that he should have promised you. It's giving you a lot more than what Trump is. Giving you a lot more than what Bush has done. You know, same thing with Obama. He gave you a lot more than Bush. You know, Clinton gave you a lot more than Bush Sr. and Reagan. You know, it's clear that these people are trying to do things for the better of the whole and not just for certain people. So why would you not vote? It's clearly been shown time and time again.
I guess I was thinking about that the other way, which, I mean, you should vote, but I was thinking about this earlier. I can't remember what story I was reading. But I'm a bit more frustrated with the people who do vote, because I remember what it was. It was some of the gun violence stuff. And it was yet another one of those, those, oh, I wasn't reading it. It was a video. Yet another one of those like people standing up at a chart talking about how like 80% of Americans agree with expanding gun, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm so fucking sick of hearing that goddamn line, because it doesn't fucking matter if you don't vote at people who are going to pass that kind of legislation. Like,
right.
I mean, even if it's true, like, it's been true for a long fucking time and it clearly hasn't had any effect. So stop saying that like it's useful. Like, it's I don't know. Maybe I'm being toxic, but like every time I hear that line now, I just want to fucking throw up in my mouth. It drives me crazy. Like, yeah, it is true, more or less, that people broadly support gun regulation. I guess those numbers shift a little bit depending on how you ask certain questions or what your focus is, but it doesn't matter, because these people are willing to vote in lunatics like Cruz. And you look at Cruz's actual performance as a senator. What has he done that warrants continuing to vote him back in? And you could talk about, I was going to say gerrymandering, the way they cook the books. That is fair and that is true, but like, they do get votes, right? Like you can't sit there and pretend Trump only got 5 votes during the last presidential election. He got a lot, way more than he should have. And that's not just a gerrymandering issue. That's not just a misinformation issue. Like, a lot of people vote the wrong way. And I know people hear me say that and just think, oh, so you mean voting Democrats the right way? Well, kind of at the moment, because the alternative is a little too stupid. But a lot of people go out there and vote decisions that make no fucking sense. Even if you go back earlier and you did the 2016 when Trump won, maybe you could be like, all right, give that one a mulligan or whatever. When we got to 2020 and I saw how many people voted for him again after having him for 4 years and actually getting to see in real life what he performs like as a leader, people who keep voting for Ted Cruz, people who keep voting for Mitch McConnell, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to vote out loud, but I think it sometimes. All right, that was too far, but
no,
it is frustrating.
It is very frustrating. But I think it's sad because you kind of need to get people to vote first, for the at least. Then we got to work our way up to people like voting intelligently. You know what I mean? Like, you got to take baby steps in this, because right now we live in a country that less than half of the people vote.
I mean, I agree, but like, I don't know. I guess I think both of those things should be focused on, because it was the 2016 that really let me realize, because I had friends who talked about how, I couldn't vote for Hillary because like she blamed violence on video games or some random, the stupidest reasons I could possibly hear. and explained to me why they voted for Trump. And I'm like, wow. I mean, yes, people should vote more, but I also think it is assumed people will vote with like a brain cell or two. And I'm like, I just don't believe that anymore. Like I look at people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an actual leader in this country. I'm like, nope, I don't believe it. I can't. The American people are too stupid. Vote responsibly.
By the way, for those who voted for Biden, he also wanted to start. He also did start a committee to find out like how to regulate violence in video games because he had a problem with it too. So
Sure.
just know your hypocrisy and just admit that you were just being sexist when it came to Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
Well, some of those people probably voted for Trump again under the same auspices, but like,
no, but you gotta think a lot of the things, and this is why I like the voting matters because a lot of those people just didn't vote at all because they didn't like him, but they were damned if they were going to vote for this woman, you know, stupid shit like that.
I know we don't want to linger too long, but I would just say that another line I hate is outside of like 80% of 90% of whatever people agree on gun regulation. I fucking despise the what's the line? I'm gonna vote my conscience. What's his name? Bill Maher. Like sometimes on his show, not even sometimes, a lot of times, like he'll have like say a Republican on, right? And then he'll point out like how fucking insane the Republican Party has gotten. And then he'll just ask them straight up, would you vote for the Democrat next election? And they every time, I know why he asks, because every time they just sort of hesitate and be like, look, I can't vote for Trump. And they just refuse to say that they'll vote for the Democrat. And his point every time is like, look, we are, for the most part, a two-party system. There's only two real choices. You know, what is that thing he always says? Like, you know, writing in your cousin or some random shit as a voting of your conscience or whatever doesn't count. Like either you're gonna vote for this or that. So which is it? And they never fucking agree that they'll vote for the Democrat. It's like I had a lot of people who have that same sort of move where it's like, you know, to your point, maybe they don't like Trump or the Republicans, but they still can't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat, so they just don't vote and act like that's a reasonable move.
I mean, yeah. Nope. I think people blame the two-party system, but it's not the two-party system. It's just that people just don't want to agree with reasonable, you know, logic and things like that because then they have to admit that what they thought before is wrong. That's a lot of what entails into it. A lot of people don't want to admit when they're wrong in things like, you know, matters like this. So. And it's to the detriment of the nation, unfortunately. Yeah. Now, one of these days, we're going to do a podcast, a social political podcast. It's not depressing, where we just talk about all the progressive things that have happened and how the better changes has come to society. We'll probably be dead and doing this, like, you know, from the afterlife, because I don't think it's going to happen in either of our lifetimes. But, you know, somehow we'll do that. Like our ghosts will come back to haunt y'all with this podcast. That's what's going to happen.
I'm going to haunt them over something much more petty.
Just haunt them now.
Y'all were too harsh on Legend of Korra. Boo.
Okay. Nope. Any suggestions other than The Boys, which I will guess I'll start watching too.
Young Justice. I feel like nobody talks about Young Justice, and that drives me fucking nuts. That show is great. I was watching the last episode where, like, you know, they've been building up to like freeing Zod and his army from the Phantom Zone, and I was like, bruh. And when they finally got out, I was like, oh yeah, Zod's black. This is wild. Which I'm sure maybe some people would be all pissy about, but I kind of liked it. I was like, you know, he looks good as a black dude. I can't even hate. Something about him. His wife's
Yeah.
still white though, but like, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. All right, I think that'll do it for us. You guys, we appreciate.
I feel like I didn't sell it by saying Zod's black. It's a great show outside of the fact that Zod is black. Just watch it. Sorry.
You just made people not want to watch it. You know,
Right. Like,
look, have you not been paying attention to the Star Wars news? This
all
is
I
not
told
gonna
them was Zod
attract
is
people.
black.
You should just have kept the secret and then like let them find out for themselves.
My real point was that it has like a great long storyline, so watch it.
Yeah, they ain't gonna watch it now. You've ruined it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. You've let them know that this is just another PC movement that they're not going to abide by. Damn shame. All right. Thank you guys for listening, watching. We appreciate their support. Do tune in next time and keep an eye on the channel for more stuff. We actually have some stuff about wrestling and about the Star Wars, as I mentioned, that you should check out. And we'll have other little things like that coming through in the near future. All right, you guys take care. Be easy. Try to stay sane. And we'll see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Peace.
Jesus,